Hi, I'm back again. I went over the last video that I recorded, and I realized the my conversation is kind of slurred and not as articulate as I would like. I apologize for that. That is a result of my brain injury, uh, but knowing that, I will try and be much more concise and articulate with my speaking this time. So I hope it's not too distracting. I did mention in the earlier video periaqueductal gray, which was responsible for undirected escape. And I mentioned that you can see undirected escape in Caria, which is so unclear, it's ridiculous. But what I meant was you could see undirected escape in cat videos that you can see on YouTube when a cat will just jump just to get out of the way. Anyways, but that's back in the old or the previous video. So today I'm going to talk about pornography. Now I'm reading a paper that I wrote, so please I'll try and make it a little bit warmer than just me reading a paper, but I hope that you'll stick with me because there's some important things here. Okay, so pornography. Porn used to be accessed by dirty old men in trench coats going to the seedy part of town, enter a dimly lit shop through an alleyway door, to visit a filthy room with grainy video playing, to the renting, and then to the renting of a videotape for the home VCR. But there was still a chance somebody could see you at the video store or see you at home. But then porn moved to home computers, laptops, and now tablets and cell phones. I mean, I know about this deterioration because I've seen it and I've lived it. The details are unnecessary, but trust me when I say it's not a fun road. Practically speaking, it's a Peter Pan story. Low risk, high reward, but with no responsibility and no accountability, no personal growth, or all selfishness and the loss of human interaction. But we're all built to be in relationship with other people, not technology. Pornography does the opposite. It isolates us, it's used in private, and there's actually a degree of shame about it. And even though it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, it's more lucrative than Netflix, Google, eBay, and the NFL combined. Combined. No one actually knows the details of the exact profit margin because many companies that operate on the edge of morality are more than less likely are more, to report their income statements with integrity, if you can understand that, and I'm sure you agree. But a recent study, 2010, so it's less than 10 years old, conducted at a religious university in the western U.S. They surveyed 192 men between 18 and 27. They found that 100% of these men believed pornography use was wrong. Regardless, 35% of those men said they had used pornography in the last 12 months. Keep in mind, this was at a religious university, not a male in a secular work or a post-high school setting where I can guarantee that 35% would be higher, maybe even 100%. Teens weren't used in that study either, and I can guarantee that teens with a high sex drive and difficulty regulating emotions and hormones, and that the access of technology on a cell phone today compared to 8 years ago when this study was conducted, this number would be through the roof. Another study tried to do a similar survey, and they went to a school where they were going to compare porn use and non-porn use. So they wanted to get a control group of men that had not used pornography at all. They could not find a control group. So in other words, in that group where they did the survey, that school, 100% of men had to use pornography in the last 12 months. Now, the history of pornographic literature goes back to earliest civilization in Roman times. In the last video, I mentioned the fornix, which is a Latin term, similar Latin term, which is outside the encampment of Roman soldiers, where they would go to fornicate, fornix, with local women of the night, if you will. But the availability expanded with Playboy. My own doctor told me of a conference he went to 40 years ago. The speaker referred to a case where a patient was so addicted to Playboy that he could not make love to his wife without a magazine open to look at. So, the strength of pornography is powerful. I read a book not too long ago. I think I have it here. Here it is. This book is called The Porn Trap. I don't know if you can see it there. The Porn Trap. And it's written by Wendy and Larry Maltz, Maltz, both clinical social workers, and it's called The Porn Trap, and it's an excellent book. It helps to people that are dealing with pornography addiction, and it's really, I don't want to do perhaps I can do a study or a book report on that later, but it's an excellent book. I recommend it. I've read it. I've used it with my clients, and I think that it'd be an excellent thing for someone to pick up that's struggling with pornography. I am a Christian. I struggle with pornography myself, and so I wrote this paper with a Christian application in mind. So if you want to listen to the rest of it, please bear with me for another 2 minutes, maybe a bit longer. Psalms warns of prostitutes reporting reducing a man to a loaf of bread or money for food, but that's essentially what reducing them to a loaf of bread means. But pornography is worse. Then a man doesn't even value himself. The woman sees the money that she gains. The man doesn't even value himself because pornography is just an isolating event. The only goal of pornography is self-satisfaction and love of self only. Yet we are told to love the Lord with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind. That's in Matthew 22. God searches our hearts and our minds. Even Romans 1 talks about men continuing in sinful behavior that they can't seem to shake, being given over to a depraved mind by God, where this type of activity is actually seen as the norm. And this goes along with the idea discussed earlier of neuroplasticity. If you remember that I mentioned that in the previous video, the brain actually changes itself. Two excellent books I read on neuroplasticity, written by Norman Doidge, The Brain That Changes Itself, and The Brain's Way of Healing. Excellent books as well. Romans 12, 1 and 2. I urge you, brothers, in view of the mercy God has shown to you, offer your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. This is your act of worship. Do not be conformed to the world, but be renewed be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renew your mind. Neural pathways can be changed and repaired, but it requires work and acting with intent. So, as far as treatment goes, if you know someone who needs help, or perhaps yourself, pray first that God will not give you over to a depraved mind. Learn scripture, any scripture. Don't look for a specific verse necessarily to help you, but quoting any verse during a time of temptation is going to help you. And the Bible talks about, thy word have I hidden in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Also, if in 1 Peter 5:8, the Bible tells us about that Satan prowls like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. So, and also, just use this like an AA treatment. Don't try and fight it alone. Find a trustworthy confidant, another male that you can be honest with, and you're accountable to each other. And you'd be surprised. When you talk to men, they'll admit that they know the struggle. They're either at where you're at, or they're coming along. So know your triggers and avoid them. Triggers can be avoided by this simple word, halt. Use HALT, HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And that's a good place to start as well. Learn to bounce your eyes. That's another one. Sometimes we can't help what we see. It comes across our visual path. But bounce, boom. Bounce your eyes away. See it, boom. Look somewhere else. And act with intent. Put your computer in public areas of the house. Use your phone and tablet sporadically as a tool, not a necessity. Remember these things, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Just leave me a question here, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And please, I know your struggle. Don't be ashamed. Contact me, contact a friend, and I'm sure we can work through this big problem that is harming a lot of men today. Okay? All the best to you.